welcome to the Shake It Up Show, the show that takes a look at all things Bury AFC. And because we take a look at all things Bury AFC, it's only fair that we shine a light on the women's game. Now, it's coming up to 12 months since we announced the development of the Bury AFC women's side of the game. And to celebrate that, we're going to speak to Casey Lynchey, who's our head of women's football. And we're going to speak to Jake Williams, who is the manager of the women's elite team. But before we do all that, let's have a look at some of the goals that have been going in over the last few weeks at both the men's and the women's games. Some really tough games over the last few weeks for both the men's and the women's teams, but also some fantastic goals, as you've seen there. So, yeah, all our highlights are always published on the YouTube channel. If you subscribe down here somewhere, click the bell, and that'll tell you, oh, there's some highlights from a game. Immediately go and have a look, and you'll be able to see both the women's and the men's game. So let's not procrastinate any further. Procrastinate. Let's not mess around anymore. Let's get Casey and Jake on the show. Hello, guys. How are you doing?
Hiya.
How are you doing? You all right?
Hi, Jake. You just look like you had a swig of some dirty kind of ale there. It looks like you've got it from a bottom of a scrumpy jar.
I wish, mate. It's been one of them days, but training tonight, so it's just a coffee.
Right. Well, welcome both of you to the Shake It Up show. So, Casey, do you want to start us off with a little bit about what you do and what your role is at the club?
Yeah, so I've taken over, started as head of women's football at the club, on the main board, and we brought a recreational team of footballers across of women, and then we've set up kind of our women's first team and a women's reserves team. So yeah, taking on a couple of different roles, like sorting out the mascots and stuff at the men's team as well. Yeah, falling in love with Bury AFC.
Who wouldn't? And Jake, when did you come on board, mate? What was what got you into it?
I had a conversation with Casey through a good friend of mine that plays for the rec side of things. So she mentioned that an opportunity might be arising. I had a conversation with Casey probably back in April, I think, wasn't it, Casey?
Yeah.
And Casey kind of gave me just a roundabout kind of, I suppose, sum up of what happened, and kind of how the men's side have got them on board with the women, what they want to do going forward, and then kind of just explain that there's going to be a role advertised. And yeah, I applied for it. Had an interview, and I think it was May, our first training session. We had about 6 weeks training, a couple of games, just to kind of meet the girls, let them meet each other. A few of them already knew each other, and then we had a little break before pre-season started back in July.
And where did you start off then, Jay? What's your background in terms of football?
In terms of played all my life. Played at kind of what people say a good level when I was younger, but then just always been involved in the game in some capacity. And it weren't kind of till, I suppose, after university where I started taking the coaching a bit more serious, went overseas, doing a bit in America, and at university in Denmark. And then from there, kind of wanted to settle in England in terms of work life. Was coaching a couple of teams in Bury. Again, relocated to Australia. Started playing again a little bit over there and coaching, but then I got an opportunity at Ramsbottom United
Oh, well, you can't turn that down. You know, when you've got Australia, Denmark, America, and then you
Yeah.
opportunity at Ram United, you've got to relocate back to Ramsbottom.
Exactly. Yeah, it was either stay another year or come back to Ramsbottom. No, the visa was running out. Then connections I'd made before I went through football, kind of in, I suppose, within Greater Manchester or the Northwest. Yeah, there was an opportunity at Ramsbottom, so I went on board there with the development squad, helped with the juniors a little bit, got an opportunity with the first team and did the first team for about 18 months, kind of coaching, focus on the goalkeeper side of things as well, doing some goalkeeper coaching. And then this opportunity arose, so kind of stepped into the women's game. And yeah, on my own 2 feet now, really. It's
going really well as well. We'll come a bit later on to some of the results and stuff. What about your background, Casey? What's your background in terms of football? Obviously, you've got a slight lilt in the accent, so I presume that you've relocated as well.
Yeah, so I moved here 20 years ago with a young family and started helping out with my son's team not long after that. And my daughter, who I put into ballet dancing lessons at sort of 3, came down the stair one day and went, I want to play football. And then, I mean, that was 17 years ago. Kira plays for us now, but 17 years ago, I could not find a team to take a girl at sort of 3-4-year-old. So I went, do you know what? I'll just start my own. Couldn't find enough girls her age. So I ended up starting a boys team at the club where I was coaching. And she then played sort of in a boys team for 12 years that I was manager of. And in that time, I then become vice chair of the club as well, the local grassroots club, and enjoyed the sort of management side of things from that perspective. To stop doing that when she then left to join women's football, she signed for Bolton Wanderers. So I kind of took a step back, and I'm sorry. I took a step back completely and just stopped being involved as my career took off as a teacher and things, and then decided I wanted to start playing myself again because it had been a very long time, and I found myself in a similar situation that at the other end of the scale, I suppose, I couldn't find anyone that wanted late 30, early 40-year-old women playing football, so started the club, affiliated with Bury just before everything started happening a couple of years ago. So yeah, that's how I ended up starting the recreational football. It was just myself, a couple of teachers, took part in a charity football match, and then went, yeah, no, let's do this. And it just kind of spiraled. There's so many mums that want to kind of get back into football or try it for the first time, and we've got, numbers are huge now.
Yeah, tell us a bit about those numbers, Casey, because I remember having a chat with you a few months ago about kind of what you did in lockdown and kind of how you kept people engaged with the club and with recreational football during lockdown. So what did you do, and how did those numbers grow during that time?
Yeah, well, they started to grow really quickly. We went from the very first session of like 12 people to within a month, there was 30, 40 people banging on the door. We went from 1 night a week to 2, entered a recreational league, and it just happened really quickly. But then lockdown happened, like you say. Before lockdown, we probably had a core of about 50 people come in. We had close to 100 members ever join and give it a go, but a core of about 50 people who were coming week in, week out, absolutely loved it. And it was more than just the football. It was kind of creating something a bit different for, like I say, a lot of mums or even younger people then started joining us and going, do you know what? When you want to play football, you play for a club and you need to commit to playing matches every week. The recreational side, even 2-3 years ago, is just something that was starting to take off, I think. So numbers just kept increasing. During lockdown, we just set up loads of social things. We were doing the standard, what everybody did, Zoom quizzes, and we also did a lot of exercise classes online that we were including people in. We've got a strength and conditioning coach who did lots of exercises. when I first set up the club, I kind of incorporated soccer size with it as well. So that was easy to do online, and numbers still kept growing during lockdown, which was unusual because a lot of clubs found it difficult to sustain themselves really. And we ended up going in the opposite direction. So when we were allowed to meet again, we then had over 100 people wanting to come down. And it's just again continued from there. Last week we just had, I think, the 300th member who's ever came down and joined. And you know, for lots of people, they go, it's not quite for me. Others have moved away or find that family commitments, they can only come once a month, but we're just really, really flexible. That's the beauty of recreational football, I suppose. Really, really flexible in that sense.
Yeah, it's that understanding and realizing that, you know, you don't have to commit to absolutely every single training session. I suppose that's quite a nice
Yeah.
It's brilliant. We'll come back to a little bit about the women's reserves and we just talk about the elite team. So Jake's been a good season so far for the elite women's team. Just having a look at some of the results here. So we started off the season, Old Boltonians 3-2, beat Atletico Middleton, which I love that name for a football club. 4-2, and then 8-0 against Droylsden, 8-1 against Rochdale, 2-1 against Curzon, a 0-0 with Mosley, 5-1 against Ashton, 7-0 against Manchester Laces. So it's been a really good season, a good first start to the season. I suppose a lot of parallels can be drawn to the men's team. Is obviously you're challenging at the top of the league, you're scoring a lot of goals. So tell us how this season's panning out.
Yeah, I can. You know, we kind of put obviously the things in place for the girls, but can't fault the girls' kind of attitude and efforts and commitment. I mean, going back to the old Bolts game, that's probably for me still, you know, the Curzon Ashton one's the one that sticks out. But the old Bolts is the big result for me because we purposely set up a tough pre-season for the girls. Yeah, some of them knew each other, but they'd not played together for a number of years. Some had never met. So, you know, it was tough. We were playing teams in the league, 2 leagues above us. Coming away with some tough results, losses to begin with. And then we started to kind of hit the ground running. Couple of good draws, and then to start the season the way we did with a win. It was strange in the changing rooms after. I think for us coaches and management, there's a lot of excitement with our first 3 points. Yeah. The girls, I think it was more relief and not much celebrations to start with. But from there, the girls have cracked on. You know, they've really bought into the way we want to play in terms of applying themselves in training, and then, you know, really trying to do what we ask in a game situation. And, you know, although we scored a lot of goals, I'm sure Casey will agree, we've also created a number of chances as well. So it's starting to really click. And the girls understand the opportunity they've got. You know, they understand what we want to do in terms of not just a team, but as a club, going up the leagues and challenging, you know, teams that are higher than us. They did that in the cup competition. So, we'll just kind of keep obviously doing what we're doing and do our best when an opponent's put in front of us to get either the 3 points or get into the hat for the next round of the cup.
So what's your kind of style of play, Jake? What kind of ethos have you got for a style of play? Who do you kind of draw your kind of, you know, draw your knowledge from, and what kind of tactics, shall we say, do you use?
I mean, with the girls, this season, a lot, you know, to begin the season, we did a 6-week block of kind of pressing from the front. So we really wanted them to keep the opponents in the opposition half and kind of get the front 3 working off the ball. And that's worked. But it was then not just the front 3, it was making sure the girls understood that the midfield 3 have got to work as well, and the back 4 have got to kind of push up the field. So really on the front foot and turning the back 4. One of the big things that's clear in pre-season was if we didn't turn the back 4 of some of the higher oppositions, we found games really difficult to create chances. So it's ensuring that our full-backs, centre midfielders, when they get a bit of space, you know, can they put the balls into positions for our wingers to get beyond the back 4 and then fill the box. So I'd like to say it's exciting. You you know, some people might look at it and think route one, but it's route one with a bit of plan behind it. It's not just kind of let's boot the ball forward. There's definitely, I know from the experience I've had this year, the planning in terms of sitting at home and looking at sessions of how the girls will understand it, that's kind of the big learning curve for me in terms of the men's side of the game. In terms of learning from other coaches, it's difficult. Obviously, it's easy to sit here and say there's coaches that, you know, I suppose celebrity coaches that managing the Premier League and stuff, or across the world. But coaches I've played under, and also coaches I suppose I've worked under, especially at Ramsbottom, kind of Chrissy's man management there with the players, especially when it come down to football. But then his assistants that he had around him, the way they spoke to the players and dealt with them and really got to know them on a personal level. I feel like I've tried to do that with the girls. Me, Steve, Casey and Kelly kind of all agreed that if we've got a good changing room, things will start to happen on the field. I'd like to think, you know, we've spoke a number of times, you look at the men's side of things on Twitter after their games, you can clearly see they've got a massive relationship inside the changing rooms and off the field, and it works on the field. Yeah. I've been in teams where I've coached and played, and if we're good mates off the field and willing to go for something to eat together, have a drink and celebrate our wins and take the losses on the chin, but make sure we react, then it does happen on the field. So yeah, that's where I've got to kind of give them big credit.
I would say that your style is quite route one, because it's always like in their box, because there's been 8 goals in one game, 8 goals in another, 7 in another, 5 in another. So I'd say it's pretty route one, to be honest.
Yeah. There's a thought
process. That's just the goal scored, isn't it? So
yeah.
Said, you know, some of those matches, shots on goals been significantly more than that, Jake, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, the big thing with us is we've seen it on Twitter with, you know, I think the girls are starting to realise that the following that, you know, Bury have got, and kind of the people maybe they've never met that have complimented them. And obviously the accolades are always going to go to the front three that are playing that weekend, and possibly the midfielders that got on the score sheet. But, you know, things like the Kers and Ashton game, you know, it was a very difficult game. Our back was against the wall for the kind of last 25 minutes. So although we do, you know, when we're in possession of the ball, like to go forward at speed and turn the back four, can't fault the back four and our defensive midfielders, that concentration levels in some games is going to be difficult. But in that game, we really needed them to dig deep, and they did. They worked hard, and, you know, kind of obviously didn't concede any more to make sure we got over the edge and got into the round for the next hat. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it's dead easy to look at the scores and go, yeah, there's an 8-0, there's a 7-0, but I suppose it's those results, especially against teams in a higher division as well, that you're just grinding, like you say, grinding the result out 2-1. That was really important to you. And I suppose, again, going forward, it's a sign of growing as well, isn't it? It's a sign of the team, and it's not just about banging 4 or 5 or 6 past an opposition. It's grinding those results out and all. Yeah,
absolutely. Pre-season was like a clear sign for that. The girls, you know, getting to know each other on the field, how each other plays, you know, what makes them tick, where they struggle in games, and we were conceding, and then, you know, we called ourselves a second half team for a couple of friendlies because we'd come back out fighting, and, you know, go away with a draw. So, you know, the games this season where they've been close, it's good to see us taking the lead and actually, no, we're going to hold on to this lead and manage the game. But other games, big compliment we've given to girls is kind of the willingness to fight for 90 minutes. And I know a lot of people probably listen to this and think, well, you know, you should do that. But believe me, especially as a coach, trying to get that mentality across to players is a lot more difficult than it used to be. But I think the Middleton game, we were 2-0 down till the 70-odd minute. And then, you know, we scored 4 goals, things started to click, and they just believe in themselves. And we can't ask any more from them. So it's brilliant.
And you've been getting some good crowds as well, haven't you? I mean, some of the crowds have been bigger than some of the crowds in the league that the Bury AFC are in. You know, you've been getting 100 plus coming down watching you.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we obviously promote it on our Twitter page, but I know obviously the men's side of things, they've retweeted it. The girls were on the pitch at was it a Tuesday evening game, I believe. But yeah, we can't fault the support we've had. You know, our first season, And I think the girls have slowly started to really appreciate that and understand that, people aren't going to be able to get down every Sunday, but me and Steve have kind of been so pleased when we know there's a good Super Sunday clash on Sky Sports and we've still got 100 down to watch the girls. And then we've had kind of the feedback from spectators that have said, been to my first game, really enjoyed it. The girls scored 5 today, so it's good to see, and we've made them aware of that. If people are coming down to watch, let's put on a bit of a show so they come back, because essentially for fans we are a bit of a shop window. So when they come, we've got to make sure we're putting on a bit of entertainment to make sure they come back.
I think Casey will agree as well, though. It's for some people, it's their it's their accessibility to women's football. They might not be interested in what's going on at United or what's going on at City, but if it's on their doorstep and they can drive there within 5 to 10 minutes, then you're more likely to pick up those those floating spectators, if you like. And does it give the girls a bit of a lift as well when they see they're coming out to 100? Because I mean, when I played football when I was 12 years old and there was 4 people and a dog and whatever, you kind of think, we'll just crack on. But I suppose when you're coming out and you've got a bit of pressure behind you, 100 people shouting, and does it give them a lift?
I definitely say it has, especially in the games where, the Middleton game is probably a perfect example. That first goal went in, and it's not going to be a roar like Old Trafford, but you still, no matter how many people there, you feel the celebrations on the sidelines, and that gives you a lift. And I think, like I say, slowly but surely as the season's gone on, and they're getting compliments of how well they're doing in the cup, how well they're doing in the league, they're starting to really take on board of, actually, we're not just a team, this is a club. Yeah. And like you say, there's people coming down, and it's been great to see that it's not always the same faces, there's new faces coming down, and all it takes is kind of, like you say, one little girl or one little boy to say, can we go and watch the men's team? And there you've got 2 or 3 fans coming down then to watch.
Got a fan as well, as if they keep coming back, and then it leads on from there. What about... I
think that was really important as well from the board's perspective, that we got a decent pitch in the centre of Bury. Not the centre of Bury, but a local pitch that had decent facilities and a clubhouse and a bar and all the sort of things that we would want to attract people to come along as well as to watch the football. And it's definitely had an impact. Like Jake says, the girls are starting to recognise some faces of some of the men's fans, or they were the men's fans. They're now just Bury fans, aren't they? We can say that. Coming down every week, and bringing a couple of extra people with them. And I think the girls are, like Jake says, really starting to clock that's happening. And it's got to be a nice feeling for them, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think naturally, I was the same when I was younger. It was parents watching, and I know my dad, who's not a football fan, didn't give me a lift watching at the side because he probably weren't too interested. But with the girls, they're seeing a familiar face at home games, but they're also some away games. Can't fault, certain people probably thinking on Sunday, we're going to watch the girls. Was quite entertaining last week, and there's some familiar faces coming down to the odd away game, which it's brilliant, and it'd give me a lift. So I'd like to think it definitely gives the girls a lift. So.
Casey, how important is it to bridge the gap between the men's team and the women's team and the women's football? How important is that bond? Because I know that a few of the girls come watching the men's team, on a Tuesday night. It's freezing cold, and they're there at the side of the pitch clapping the lads on. How important is that bond between kind of and building that relationship between throughout the club? So we've got is that like you say, is that something that you kind of signed up for and wanted to kind of take forward?
Well, I think it's just an ethos of the club. It's not something that I've driven at all. It's just kind of the way the club is. When we first started having the conversations about setting up a more elite women's team to complement the recreational side, it was always the conversations with the board and with Phil and with Marcel was always that women's football should be regarded as well as men's. And even that, like I say, 20 years ago, the difference that I've seen in the last 20 years, the last 5 years, the last 2 years, it just continues to grow, doesn't it? The fact that United now are putting out a team where they stopped it for 20 odd years, and the crowds that top level women's football is getting, it's changing, isn't it? And we're a small part of that change with the things that we're doing as a club to show the girls how valued they are. That's something that comes from the heart of the club. That's not something that's just driven by us at all. It's what the club's ethos is at the heart of. So that's really, really nice for the girls to be involved, for me to be involved, and I'm sure Jakes feels the same. For some clubs, it has always been an add-on.
Yeah.
The women's a bit of tokenism, or put it however you want, but it's never been like that from day one. They've got, from everyone from like our commercial department to media, they get treated really, really well. They've got all the same gear that the guys have got, and like you say, it's just appreciated.
I think
the big thing, sorry to butt in, I think it's like the bridging the gap. It's natural as well, how it's being bridged. It's not forced. It's not forced in terms of, we've got a women's team, you've got to go and follow them. We've got a men's team, you've got to go and follow them. So, the girls are going to watch the men after kind of them just saying who fancies going to the game. We're not saying to them, you need to go down and watch because, we've had fans down here, and vice versa. We're not going to sit here and say to any of the men's players or the fans that go, listen, you need to start coming because we've got a girls team. It's just, people are just finding the time and think, well, I'll go and support the club. And the backing that the board have kind of give to us is, from me looking out in, it's the same as what they're giving to the men, and the opportunities they're giving the girls. We really pushed for 2 sessions a week, and they've gone, we'll back that. And we're training twice a week now, which I know some men's clubs that play in high leagues in Bury that don't train twice a week. So for us to be getting out, the board have gone, well, if that's what they want and that's how you want to kind of move forward, we'll do that. Like Casey said with the pitch, I think we spoke about, didn't we, Casey, a 3G in Bury at a school that we could have got, and the club were like, no, we want to make sure we've got a venue that good enough facilities for the girls, but also it's good enough facilities that if fans come down, they can get a bite to eat, they can get a coffee, they can get a beer, they can watch a game, and that's a
they can do this exact same thing as they can at a men's game or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a full weekend of it then for some, and for some people who that's their life, isn't it?
Yeah.
They live for that, and it's lovely that it's not just a Saturday now. It's a Saturday and Sunday for some. So, and hopefully that will just continue to grow, and I'm sure it will. As we grow as a team and as a club. So.
Yeah.
So just about in terms of between obviously Jake's position as the elite women's manager and your position, Casey, kind of with the rec stuff. What's the kind of relationship there? What's the bridge, and how do you go from maybe turning up as a I don't know, a 22-year-old who just fancies a kickabout to maybe possibly even stepping up to the elite level? Is there a progression?
So we've got a reserves team as well, and that's really quite unusual for us for a club to launch a first team and a reserves team in the same season, the same establishment, because we did have that many girls who were interested in coming down, and we didn't even advertise open trials or anything. We just kind of attracted people. I didn't speak to one other person other than my daughter, and we've had people coming out of academies and everything, so we've just attracted people really, really well, whether it is the name or the ethos that we've got or what we're doing. But also we had that many people interested. We didn't want to turn people away. So right away we went, do you know what, why not put in 2 teams? And, started a reserves team right away. Sam, who manages the reserves teams, absolutely brilliant as well. He's got the exact same ethos as everything we've been speaking about. They're playing the exact same style of football as well. And Craig, who's his assistant, the both of them are absolutely brilliant. And it's just opened it up, the opportunity for another 20 odd girls to be playing 11-a-side football. And that is the kind of the bridge between the rec football and the first, really. So it's really nice that way. And like you say, age-wise as well, I mean, it's not even just the young 20-year-olds or 22-year-olds. You know, we've got some players in their 30s who have had a big gap from football, a big break, and came back in, who are still absolutely quality.
Yeah.
So both teams have got a wide range of ages as well, from, you know, our youngest has just turned 17 and our eldest is 37, and the reserves, I think their youngest is 21 and their eldest is 43 probably signed up. So we've got a big range of women of different ages playing. And then, like I say, within the rec, we've now got 5 teams this year playing in the Manchester Recreational League, and we've got a couple of walking teams as well. So it is the bridge there. There's quite a lot of them that are going, actually, I'm really enjoying this. I do fancy being a bit more committed and playing 11 aside and going to training once or twice a week, every week, who are making that step up from the rec to the reserves team. So we've got a clear pathway in place. And it just kind of happened almost. You know, there's a lot of work goes into it, obviously, but it doesn't just happen that easy. But, you know, it kind of is as well, really. It's nice.
So for people that are watching this, and if they're interested, tell us how they can get involved with the rec stuff, and where do they turn up? How do they get involved? How do they contact you? What can they do? Yeah,
so we've got social media pages that, you know, in the rec side, I've got a brilliant committee who fully support everything that we're doing, from a treasurer, secretary, social media people, welfare, because there's no way I could have grown a club to that size on my own, working full time as well. So there's a really brilliant group of people who are pushing and driving this. So sort of messages on social media, we've always got the opinion that we'd never say no to anybody, regardless of their background, regardless of if they've never kicked a ball before or they just want to step back into it. So we always welcome everyone, and we now have, like I say, those teams of different abilities, and people just drop us messages either on the Facebook pages or Twitter pages or on the Women at Bury email address, and we try and channel them to what the right route is for them, because we're getting contacted by people who have played at a high level. So it's like, right, well, do you want to come and have a look at the firsts, or do you want to come and have a look at the reserves, or do you just, you know, want to play recreationally? Or so the pathway's there, and they'll literally get a response probably within the hour. You know, that's how good the team are.
So if they just want to tap into any social media sites, whether it be Twitter or Facebook, they can type in Bury AFC. Is it Women's Rec?
Or just even typing in Bury AFC Women, and the Recreational have got their own page as well. So there's email addresses and stuff linked to them all. So, or just sending a message on any platform, they all end up getting back to me somewhere along the line, and I'll direct them where's best for them. Or
we'll leave a little bit of correspondence in the comments thing below. I don't know how all this works. There's a thing below with the. We'll put it in there. Jake,
perfect. Thank you.
About your girls on a Sunday, how can people come and watch the elite women's team on a Sunday? Where do they play? What time? How do they find out about the fixtures?
Fixtures are on our Twitter page. There, kind of go out. I think we post a couple of times a week for each fixture on a Sunday. But yeah, every Sunday our home games are Unsworth Cricket Club, which we found out not so long ago is called the Dragon's Den. With Cricket Club sign behind a couple of bushes. Me and Steve kind of found it. So yeah, they're welcome to the Dragon's Den. 2 o'clock kickoff on a Sunday. This weekend we're away over at Hotwood Hall College, I believe.
Yeah.
Hope I got that one right. And it's a bit of a top of the table clash. So if you're looking for something to do this Sunday and the weather isn't kind of
as bad as last week.
Yeah, it's not as bad as last week. Then we're over at Hotwood Hall. But every Sunday at 2 o'clock, the fixtures will be kind of posted on our social media pages for you to see if it's local or if it's too far.
There is also a page on the main Bury AFC website that, you know, again, going to the equality, it's Bury AFC men's elite fixtures, women's elite fixtures, and the whole fixtures for the season are on there.
Okay, so if you are looking and you are interested, please get in touch with these guys, because it's a fantastic thing. It's a good thing for the community as well. That's what we are. We're a community club, and we're there. It's something for everybody. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, and thank you so much for taking the time. Good luck for the season, and hopefully we'll be seeing 2 promoted teams at the end of the year. You know?
Three, yeah. 3.
3 promoted teams at the end of the season. Guys, thanks very much. Cheers for that.
Yeah, really appreciate you having us on and letting us kind of obviously talk about the women's teams all the right through.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Nick.
Cheers. See you later.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, folks. I'll stop recording. A huge thank you to Casey and Jake there for telling us what's happening from everything on the women's side of Bury AFC. Thank you, guys. If you are interested in recreational, the recreational part of the game, details will be below, so you can click down in the description area, and it'll give you a link to where you need to get to speak to the people that you need to speak to. And we'll also have a link in there on how you can go and watch the women's games on a Sunday. Now it's coming up to Christmas time. Oh my God, it's coming to Christmas. I'm sure you're scratching your head thinking, what can I get for my loved one? What do they need? Well, you don't need to even leave your armchair. You don't even need to leave that little chair that's at your dining table with the computer on it. Because if you go to www.buryafc.uk, and you'll see it in the top right-hand corner, there is a little navigation tool. That's what it's called in the trade, a navigation tool. I don't know what I'm talking about. It will say shop. And on there are loads and loads of different things that you can get. There's merchandise from clothing to badges to memorabilia. So go and click on there and go and buy something for a loved one for Christmas. I'm sure they would absolutely be made up with a Bury AFC scarf. Fantastic. Other than that, this is available as a podcast. So if you don't like my face, you can listen to it through Spotify and Apple and other areas where you can get your podcasts. I don't know what any of that's called. And also available on social media. Type in Bury AFC into the search bar. We are available on Twitter, on Facebook, on TikTok, on Instagram. Don't think there's any other ones that I've missed out. I'm sure that Meta is going to be a thing. So we'll probably be in a virtual environment where we can, you know, hold hands with somebody like, I don't know, Scott Metcalf, and we can touch Adam McWilliams' face. Or I don't know. That's weird. I don't know. Maybe it's the metaverse. I don't know what's going to happen. There's going to be all sorts of crazy stuff going on in the future. But for the time being, it's Facebook. So, yeah, sorry. That's a bit weird. Sorry, guys. Until next time, we'll see you soon on the Shake It Up Show. Goodbye.